Hello again from Skip, Victor Echo 6, Bravo, Golf Tango. I haven't uploaded a video in quite a while, so this is one of those projects that I started covering before and I'm just finishing it up now. It's been taking quite a while. Anyways, I'm reaching out to Ronald, ON7FLY, that I met at the Moonbounce conference in Trenton. Ronald, don't stay up all night watching this video now. So just to refresh how this all started, back in April of 2024, I built this, I call it 1296 Terrestrial transmitter setup. I used an old transverter I got from a Grant VA6TA, and then I had an amplifier, which is a W6PQL design, and I put it all together in this chassis and got something running. I showed in the last video how I tested it and got it going, so I had it all on the bench here. Now I guess the next step was to do something with it. My first problem was, where am I going to put this darn thing? I got all these racks in here plumb full of equipment, and I just don't have room to put up another rack. So where am I going to mount it? I guess fortunately, the one rack has some 6-meter equipment in it, and I don't use it anymore. So I guess I'll have to pull it and sacrifice it for space. So I yanked all the parts, all the shelves out of the rack, and got the rack sitting on the floor and started sizing things up for this new 23-centimeter terrestrial transverter to fit in there. I always wanted to redo the vent system for the HF amplifier because it doesn't have a good shot at any clear air, so I drilled a hole in the side of the chassis, and I've always wanted to paint this thing, so it made it out to the garage finally and got a new coating of my favorite gray paint to match everything else. So when the paint was all dry, it got hauled back into the ham shack and set up on the floor, and I proceeded in installing all the different parts and pieces of the different equipment that I'm going to be using in this particular rack. All in all, it went together quite well, and I'm quite tickled with it the way it looks. I've always said it's got to look good, besides operating good. Anyways, I powered things up and proceeded on testing. This is the back view where things are going to hook to it, and it's this usual looking rat's nest. So with everything now nicely mounted, it's time to get something on the air, and I knew a long time ago I needed a new antenna. My old beat up one was just not going to cut it. I built this loop Yagi many years ago, and all I could find for material was this real thin aluminum, and I look at it and the loops would just bend on the stuff, and between the birds and the hail, it never seemed to last, so it's time for something new. Actually, the year before, I bought a loop kit from Directive Systems and Engineering out of Haymarket, VA, down in the States, and I was able to buy just a loop kit itself. I didn't need the boom. I got lots of aluminum tubing here, so it saved me a bit of money on the shipping part of it, and their loops are a fairly substantial thickness, so it should last. I bought the 55 element, a long boomer. I figured no sense going halfway with it. The boom is 15 feet long, and first thing I had to do is get all the markings on it to drill the holes for all the elements. That was a bit of a challenge in itself. Next was getting the holes drilled and getting all drilled in a straight line and all straight with each other, or vertical with the world sort of thing. I used an old level I had and build up a kind of a clamp system to clamp it to the boom itself. This way, as I go along and start drilling each individual hole, I look at the bubble level and make sure it's perpendicular, and the holes should be lined up then. That was the plan. Seemed to work. But like all good plans, sometimes they don't work as well as you'd want them to. You can see here we're trying to get the bubble to center up, and every time I clamp the device on the drill press to hold it, it would move, so it's back and forth, back and forth. It took some doing to get all the holes drilled. It was time consuming. Once I was happy with the positioning of the bubble and the level, I moved the clamp along to get the drill bit centered on the pipe. Of course, it's round, who knows where it is, so I had this little metal tab with a mark on it. I'd lay in the clamp itself, and it would kind of give me a guide where the center is. And I'd slowly take the drill and start scratching a mark into the tubing, because it always wanted to take off sideways. But if you're patient, have a good sharp little bit, it would start where you wanted it to go, and finally just drill right through it. So when I got all the holes done, the next part was to weld up the mounting brackets. Pretty well doing it the same way I did with my old homebrew one. So I took a bit of aluminum plate using levels to get everything square as best I can again. I proceeded on tack welding and then finally welding the brackets to the aluminum boom of the antenna itself. Probably noticed earlier that the boom had quite a sag to it. So it needed a cross member section. So I had some old aluminum pipe from an old dish and built up some brackets to go from that mounting plate up to the boom itself, and I'll just hold it up so the boom itself would stay not vertical, but stay horizontal when it's standing there by itself. Finally, it was time to start adding elements to this project. The driven element is made of brass, and it needs a bigger hole for the mounting stud to go through, so that was the first thing to do. The reflectors and all the driven elements are held in place with a 440 stainless steel bolt has a lock washer type nut. So you just get them in there and tighten it down the best you can, and it seems tight enough. It doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere, and so far all the holes seem to be lining up. They're well marked in the bags which element is what, so there is a mounting sequence. So you got to keep that straight, and you just do one at a time, and sooner or later you get all 55 elements mounted, and it looks pretty darn good, actually, I thought. With all the loops mounted on the boom, you look down the middle of it, and if you see one that's off a little bit, you can just take it and bend it over a little bit. I don't think getting the holes perfectly aligned is all that important, like I was thinking. So all in all, they line up pretty good. Next, it was time to hook the semi-rigid hard line to the driven element so you could connect the feed line to it. It slides up through that brass bolt I was talking about and solders to the top of the two brass rings, or the edge of the rings I should say, one to the shield, one to the center conductor. The end connector and the piece of semi-rigid line come with a kit, and the way you tune this thing is by shaping the brass ring. You're squashing it out by sliding the rigid line up and down through the hollow bolt or nut that it goes through. I found that their piece of semi-rigid line was too short, and I couldn't adjust it that much, so I took it apart, made my own. I made the line longer so I could get more travel with the rigid line through the bolt. So finally it was time to see if this thing was going to do anything or work or tune up at least. I drug it outside and clamped it at the top of a step ladder and got it aiming at, more or less nowhere into the horizon. A bunch of trees, actually. And with this new Enritsu test box here, I had to learn how to run this darn thing. I had quite a bit of trouble at first. I won't bore you with it here, but this is the final result anyways, and it seemed to tune up pretty good. So with the new loop Yagi tuned up and seemed to be ready to go, the next step I had to go up the tower and take down my old beat-up homemade one. And a few months had gone by. I just never got around to it. Too many other projects on the go and things like that. So the day came, finally I got enough nerve to go up there and remove the old thing and bring her down. As I had explained before, this homemade one I built many years ago, the loop material, it was just really thin stuff, and it got squashed badly. So my plan here is to have two of these antennas. The new one, which will be the transmit, and this old one here, I'm going to rebuild it and use it as a receive. Separate antennas for a separate function. I know, seems like a silly idea, but something I wanted to try. What I should have done earlier was ordered a second loop kit, but for the time being, I'm just going to rebuild this thing. So I cleaned it up the best I could, put a new line on it, new semi-rigid line, and straightened up the loops, and took it outside, set it up, and tuned her up. When she's in nice shape, it tunes good. The idea was that I'm going to hang these things upside down, so hopefully the birds will stay off the loops anyways. We'll see. So if I want two antennas, that means I had to rebuild the the old bracket or mounting pipe. So found some more aluminum and welded up a new assembly. So with the new pipe bracket built, clamped in a vise, I mounted the two antennas. This picture shows them ring side up or loop side up. It's going to be upside down on the tower. Pretty hard to mount it that way in the garage, but I just got to remember that while I'm sizing up cables and stuff for the new arrangement. So why two antennas, you ask? Well, this is the reason here. I want to have the receive antenna with a decent receive preamp, and then the other antenna will be for transmitting only, and I didn't want to have to mess around with TR switching, with the power I'm going to have going up there, on 70, 80 watts. So thus the two antenna idea. We'll see. The only box I had available here in my parts bin was this, I don't think it's fiberglass. It's more like a hard plastic. I'm not sure how it would weather. It's got an O-ring and all that, but I think I'm more of the sun. So I got it mounted, and I built a secondary shield. It's just built out of thin aluminum. It's just going to go over it and just shed the sunlight off it and excess rain, and hopefully it'll make it last a little longer. Next, I got the clamp that's going to put all this to the main mast on top of the tower. Simulated the mast pipe itself, and then I worked on all the various cables that are going to have to be extended or built to go around the mast and eventually hook up to the different runs of hardline on the tower. I also had to build up another cable that's going to supplying voltage and control functions for the preamp itself. So my idea was to continue on using that old bent up loop antenna I had built previously, and order another loop kit later on this winter and maybe have it ready for next summer. But then I had a brainwave. The EME conference is coming up. I knew that Directive Systems was going to be at the conference, so I phoned them up and said, can I order another loop kit from you and pick it up at the conference? And of course, no problem whatsoever. So that's what I did. The conference was a great success. Met a lot of people, had a great time. So I was coming home with another loop kit. So we got home, and about a month later, after getting other things done and caught up, I got back to building the second loop Yankee. I won't get into details like the other one, but here's a few pictures. You can see the first one in the foreground there up against the wall. I took them both outside and put them through the tuning up and testing procedures and all that, and then got back into the garage and mounted both new ones onto the existing cross member. And of course, this second new loop Yankee is longer than my old beat up one, so the cable for it was too short, so I had to start over and build new cables for that. And, it all drug along, but we finally got it all done. So no more excuses. Everything was built and ready to go, so it's time to get everything up the tower and mounted. Don't have any videos of me climbing up there, so I'll spare you that torture. You don't want to see an old guy up there with his knees chattering together and his arms shaking anyways. So the first thing that went up was the new cross member and the preamp. I did this just one day. I stretched this job out over a few days. No sense killing myself. So I'll give myself a rest, and then the next day, dug up the first loop Yankee, which will be the transmit one. Got it mounted up there, and so far so good. I had a bit of an embarrassing situation with my climbing belt, which I won't get into detail here, but we'll just say that I need to lose some weight. So the next day I dug up the second loop Yankee, the receive one, and got it installed. Relatively no pain. Everything went together well, so it's looking good, actually, I think. I had perfect weather for this. There's just no wind whatsoever, and it was quite hot, so I tried to do most of this in the morning, before it got too hot in the afternoon, but all in all, I was lucking out with the weather part of it. Now with all the antenna hardware mounted up there, it's time to get the feed lines connected. I have a 7/8 piece of heliax going up for the transmit line. It's right at the top. It was going to reach the jumper lines easy. The receive side, I already had a piece of 1/2-inch heliax up there, but it was not quite to the top, and I had a big roll of it at the bottom, which is going to give me about an extra 4.5 feet, which would take it right to the top. So That was the next step, was going up and down the tower and stretching this cable up to the top where the flexible parts off the antenna would reach it. The other issue I had to contend with was the half-inch heliax I'm going to use for the receive side. Had a, what do you call it, an SL239 or a PL259 type of connector, which wasn't going to fly for this frequency, so I had to change it over to an N-type. So I hauled assortment of tools up on this red Milwaukee bag up the tower by rope, and then proceeded on changing the connector. Get me anywhere near a utility knife for a razor blade knife. I'm sure to cut myself, so there was blood to be had. So there's a picture of the new end connector installed on the half-inch heliax. So that part was done. I shoved it up to the top of the tower and got ready for the next step. After getting the heliax all in place and at the top of the tower, I had to splice in the new or extension cable that goes up to the preamp for DC power and control lines. So it's an old rotor cable. I had it was partially up there, so got it all the way up to the top. I have this real nice Milwaukee electric soldering gun, which is perfect for doing things on top of the tower. So anyways, got it all done and tucked away. So that was the last thing that needed to be done. Everything's all hooked up, and she's a nice view from up here. So I guess the next step is seeing how it performs. A few more things to do downstairs, though, yet. Quite a view from up here. Anyways, beautiful weather, and you can sure see that harvest is in full swing. So I guess everything outside's all done, so I was back into the shack and I had to fix up some cables and then do some checking. First thing I had to do was get the one transmit line, the 7/8 heliax. They were normally going down the corner of the wall there. I had to stretch it out and get it up over the main beam of the basement there of the house, over to the other side of the racks. This is where the hard line heliax, I should say, would normally wind up down along the wall there, and I'd just string a cable across the floor. But now they're just hanging right out in the middle of the room and kind of in a way, so I had to build up some kind of a support. So I was back out to the shop and I found some old pipe and built up this goofy looking pole thing with the angle iron at the top, and it's got a threaded shaft going at the bottom with a small foot. You'll see how it goes into place here. In this video you can see the top of that pole is screwed to the floor joists above, and as we go along here it goes all the way down to the floor, and there's little tabs there that the heliax and the excess cables and stuff will tie wrap to, keeping things in some kind of order. And with my wobbly camera here, I'll zoom in and you can see how the cables, the transmit line's got a small jumper of LMR that goes over to it. The half-inch heliax for the receive hooks directly to the back of the transceiver. So before I got ahead of myself here, I wanted to do one more thing I had to check. I wanted to see how the cables were going to wrap around the mast as I turned the antennas. There's four RGA cables plus a couple of control cables that are all in a bundle, and they've got to twist around that mast in some kind of order, so hopefully they don't get caught up. I'm looking with my remote camera that I use to watch the dish when I'm using it outside. It has another camera attached to it that has quite a zoom lens into it, and I have a clearing through the trees that I can focus in on this antenna and watch things as they rotate. The screen on the left, of course, is the camera zoomed in on the antenna, and the monitor on the right is another one of my Visual Basic projects I built, quite a while ago. I can control the rotors and stuff with tweak of the mouse or by pushing the up count button. But anyways, I'm going to spin things here and just see how it all rotates. The rotor turns in increments of 2.5 degrees. Might be a little coarse for these antennas, I don't know, but with the camera zoomed in on like this, boy, it sure looks like it travels fast. Anyways, it looks like it's going to turn without getting hung up on the top of the tower or something up there, which is what I was concerned with. So far so good. As I said, this camera has an incredible zoom lens on it, so you can see it really pulls back when I zoom out. So anyways, I finally powered things on, and I'm listening to the local 23 centimeter CW beacon I built a few years back. Anyways, it overloads the transverter like crazy now with the new preamp up on the antenna. So I've got the antennas beamed off the beacon, so it doesn't make such a mess of things. And anyways, that's what it looks like. So this is a test I did with Mitch, V6SM, out of Calgary, Alberta. He's about 160, 170 kilometers straight south of me as the crow flies. So this is what he sounded like. So that's the story on this project. I'm pleased with the receive side of things. The transmit, that is still out. I have some people telling me that I should be stronger, and one guy said, "Oh, you're really strong." So I don't know, there might be an interaction between the two antennas. This idea of having two separate antennas, one for receive, one for transmit, might be, I don't know, might have been one of my stupider ideas. I can see me taking this all down next summer and phasing them together. But we'll see. We'll test them some more here and see what happens. So thanks for watching. Hope it didn't get too boring. We'll say 73s from Skip, Victor Echo 6, Bravo, Golf Tango.